Hi, my name's Laura and I'm a neural engineer. I am super excited to talk about brain-computer interfaces today because it was requested quite a lot from you guys actually. Well, actually like I think 3 people, but that's a lot. That's like 1% of subscribers, which I am a woman of the people. So today I'll talk about something that I actually have a modicum of knowledge in. I am so excited that you guys are interested in this topic, especially when brain-computer interfaces and neurotechnology get a really bad rap because of the evil that is associated with it at the moment. Just before I start diving into the topic, I would like to give a disclaimer that everything I'm talking about is, I'm not gonna lie, it's a bit of an oversimplification, but that's because I don't expect any of you to have an intensive background. This is to explain kind of what is happening in the brain-computer interface and not a masterclass or even a lecture or technically even, like it's an informative video for anyone with any background, any knowledge to hopefully follow along, because I'm not gonna lie, over the years you very quickly forget what is actually basic knowledge and what is very subject specific knowledge. But anyways, but Laura, what exactly is a brain-computer interface then? Well, a brain-computer interface is basically anything that can put your brain's output, use it as input, and create new output, specifically in connection with computers. Hence, brain-computer interface. In the broadest way possible, you could even say your body is a brain-computer interface when your hands are interacting with a computer, because your brain sends a signal to your limbs to tell you, hey, I want to use this, I want to do this, and then your limbs execute it. So the body is really fucking cool, right? But it doesn't always work the way it's intended, which is where a lot of brain-computer interface research comes in, to either replace what is lost or help you rehabilitate what was, well, lost or is inaccessible to you right now. For example, my PhD project focuses on restoring your ability to use your hands after a stroke, which is a bit tricky, it's very tricky, but you kind of like using your hands, right? You like being able to be on your phone and other things. Generally speaking, you can either record brain activity invasively or non-invasively. My own research uses something called electroencephalogram, short EEG, and I'm gonna keep saying that because every time I say electroencephalogram, I am scared I'm gonna mispronounce everything. And what exactly does an electroencephalogram do? An EEG cap looks a little bit like a very stylish swimming cap with lots of little electrodes on them, and those electrodes, they can record the electrical activity of the brain, which I didn't know that we have electrical activity in our body, but the more you know. We can record this with an EEG cap from outside the skull without having to like open up any skin, open up any skull or anything. Why would we record anything invasively then at all? A very good question. And I was wondering the same for quite a lot of time, but I don't know if you know this, but we don't really know a lot about the brain, and the electrical signal emitted from the brain is quite weak, and there's a lot of biotissue like your brain and the bits between your brain and your skull, and then your skull, and then your scalp, and then if you are lucky enough your hair, and by the time the activity reaches the electrode, it's really weak. So sometimes, to get a better idea of what's going on in the activity, people used existing surgery situations to measure, okay, what if we do this, what if we do this? A lot of brain surgery is done with the patient awake anyways, to make sure that nothing important is being cooked, which allows for researchers to be like, hey, would you mind, while they're in your brain, if we put something else in there, just for a bit, just for a little while. We're going to take it out again, but for research, which sounds a lot more mad when you're trying to explain it to someone who's not into that kind of research than I thought it would. going back as a reference to what I'm doing, we want to look at hand movement and very delicate movement in general. And it is very tricky because we don't really understand how hand movement works, aside from if I move this hand, the motor cortex on this side lights up, and if I move this hand, the motor cortex on this area lights up. But that's not good enough. That's basically like, yes, you can wave, but you can never do anything else with your hands, and that's kind of not the point. Being able to use invasively recorded data, not specifically for my research, but in general, gives us a better idea of what is going on sometimes. Not exactly, and again, we have to adapt the system to work with the weaker signal that we get from non-invasive systems, but it sometimes warrants to use invasive recording methods. We yapped a lot about of how we get the brain signal right now, but to talk about BCIs, technically speaking, a BCI is just a system that takes the recorded data, pre-processes it, extracts a pattern from it associated with the task that the participant or the subject or the patient or whatever was doing, and then classify those patterns to be able to detect, okay, if I see new data, this is the event we're reacting to, so I know what I'm going to do, I think. So the way that it's recorded, the electrical activity, each electrode gives us one line of information over time, and that doesn't tell us a lot right away. It's just one squiggly line, another one, depending on how many electrodes you use, like up to 256 even. To get to a point where we can actually discern any patterns within those squiggly lines, it is important that we do pre-processing where we clean up the data, because when you record something with electrical activity, there's usually a lot of other electrical activity around. Sometimes it's even the recording equipment itself that adds its own electrical activity to things. So to filter out what we can reliably know is EEG or other electrical signal, we use pre-processing, and then what usually happens is that we cut up the signal into many little pieces, and that's called an epoch, and each epoch then is associated with a type of task. For example, whether you move to left hand or your right hand, then you have epochs that have left hand and epochs that have right hand activity, which when we then go to the feature extraction portion of the brain-computer interface, we can extract if there's a pattern with moving your left hand and a pattern in moving your right hand. And this then informs the classifier, which when you get new data to it, then should be able to be like, aha, I know this pattern. This is a left hand. Lovely. Getting this classification information then to, for example, a robotic arm, the robotic arm then moves its left hand. And that's basically the way of getting from, I'm thinking about moving my left hand, computer realizes that this is the pattern in my brain specifically that's associated with moving my left hand, robot moves left hand. Is that straightforward? Okay, so what I've talked about usually happens in something we call an offline setting, which means at one point in time we record the data, we store the data, and then you can work on the BCI pipeline all the time, whatever you want. You can run different simulations, you can run different algorithms, you can try all these different ways of improving the output. The real goal is for a system to be able to work in real time, and I don't know if you've ever thought about how quick a thought happens, because it's really fucking quick. Just me speaking right now, seconds, millisecond. I mean, sometimes I feel there's no active thought process behind what I'm actually saying, but that's a whole other thing to discuss at some point, not now. The goal is usually to be able to have a quick system that is also reliable, which in an ideal world would work very easily. However, we don't live in an ideal world, evidently. This leaves us with having to develop systems that kind of like bridge the gaps between every little crack that finds itself in the process. I quite vibe with the idea that a lot of telekinesis requires a lot of effort in movies, like when we first see Magneto move metal. And you know what? Yeah, I rate that. I relate to that because that's kind of how a brain-computer interface works. However, if you were to use that for neural rehabilitation, I don't think they would quite appreciate having to use their hands and limbs like that. This problem is what we kind of call a bottleneck, because we've done lots of things and we all want to fit them into this little bottleneck, and then we're in the bottle and then we have more options. However, we have to get through the fucking bottleneck. Sometimes it feels like I'm doing a little bit of witchcraft, and I greatly enjoy that, because why wouldn't I? I was thinking, if you guys have any more questions on brain-computer interfaces, on my work, on fan fiction, on life, I don't know, I would maybe try to do a Q&A on one of the next videos. Only if you guys are interested. Like, might be embarrassing myself by being like, hey, leave a comment and ask me a question, and then there's 3 spam bots and nothing else in the comments. But it's still worth asking, especially following a video like this where I hope I was clear in what I was trying to say. But if you like this video, leave a like, and I hope you enjoyed it, and leave a comment if you have any specific questions, or if you're just wondering what the fuck am I doing here, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye!